And welcome back to Capitol Tonight. Well, we've heard a lot of complaining this week from state lawmakers who feel that Governor Cuomo's budget plan is just too vague. One area that is significantly lacking in detail is the governor's proposal for 10 regional economic development councils. And no one, including the outgoing ESDC chairman, is actually quite certain how these councils are going to operate or who will be serving on them. My next guest suggested at a budget hearing on Monday that legislatures should be able to participate. Tim Kennedy is a state senator. He's representing South Buffalo, and he is joining us from the Queen City tonight. Senator, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Liz. How are you tonight?
I am well, thanks. Thanks for being here.
Great.
So you were there when Dennis Mullen was testifying, and it was really unclear as to how these councils will work. And some of your fellow upstate elected officials have actually voiced some concern about the catchment area, how these councils are divided up. I mean, there's just a big question mark when it comes to this plan. Do you agree?
Well, I'll tell you, what Dennis Mullen, the outgoing president and CEO of Empire State Development Corporation, did say the other day was that although this is taking a little bit more time and the devil is in the details, at the end of the day they're moving as fast as they possibly can, but as slowly as they need to, so that when this economic development program is finally brought forward, we hit the ground running. And I think it's important for all of the state, but in particular upstate and western New York, that we have a economic development policy that is as airtight as possible, and that we embrace what the governor puts forward and make the changes that are necessary in our respective regions in order to create jobs, in order to put people to work, in order to maintain the population and grow the economy. That includes the establishment of UB 2020 and the job creation machine that will be. But, you know, although the outgoing President and CEO Dennis Mullen mentioned that the details right now are somewhat vague, I am very optimistic and hopeful that when the plan does come forward in all its detail, we will hit the ground running in job creation and opportunities for Western New Yorkers.
You know, some of your fellow legislators have said they feel a little bit like their powers being usurped by the governor's budget. Now, I know that you're a freshman, and so this is the only budget that you know so far. However, there are things like this prison closure committee that we haven't necessarily seen yet, but it specifically says, and also in the Medicaid task force and the mandate relief task force, that if the legislature can't accept these recommendations, then unilaterally the administration will make decisions based on what they will close and where they will cut. Are you worried about that?
Well, here's what I believe. I believe that the governor has a very aggressive agenda. He has aggressive agenda when it comes to job creation for New Yorkers. He also has an aggressive agenda when it comes to streamlining government, creating a more efficient and effective government, making the cuts that are necessary in order to eventually and as quickly as possible grow our economy. And, you know, there are difficult decisions that need to be made in the near future. And I think what the governor ultimately proposed in his budget is ensuring that the appropriate cuts are made in order to alleviate the $10 billion deficit that we have before us, but ultimately to create progress in results as immediately as possible.
But we don't know what those cuts are, right? I mean, we're still waiting for March 1st to roll around so we get some of these recommendations.
That's
right. And does that not make it more difficult for you when you're sitting up there on these budget hearings and trying to get information from people and there are so many holes that you're not certain of?
Well, today is my 47th day on the job, and it's the governor's 47th day on the job. And, you know, the first task at hand is looking at a $10 billion deficit. It's like climbing Mount Everest. And what we need to do is we need to make thoughtful but deliberate cuts and make sure that, you know, those most vulnerable citizens aren't taken advantage of and hurt by this budget. But at the same time, we put New York State on a road to recovery, and that's what this governor is doing. And again, in the words of Dennis Mullen, I believe the governor is making decisions as quickly as possible, but as slowly as necessary, so that we do hit the ground running and we get New York State back on the road to recovery.
You know, I had the Archbishop on the show yesterday, and he spoke of a concern that some of the people, the most vulnerable, as you called them, are going to be disproportionately hurt by this budget, by the proposal that, as we know it at this point, that the state comptroller says has a $4 billion to come, if you will, in the cuts that we don't know about yet. How much of a stand are the Senate Democrats willing to make sure that people who are low income and, for example, low income school districts, which are getting cut as well, are going to be made whole to the degree that they can be?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I have a great admiration for the Archbishop, and he's right on target. The fact of the matter is we need to make necessary cuts, but at the same time we need to make sure that the students are protected. And I can tell you this, the governor in his budget was very innovative when it comes to the education department. He put a $250 million pool of money that allows school districts to come up with efforts to bring together the administrations to work together to find long-term cost-saving measures that ultimately will allow them to dip into this $250 million pool so that they can sustain whatever kind of cut is necessary within their district, so that those that are the education system is set up for, the students, are impacted as minimally as possible, if at all.
Well, but the similar pool does not exist, for example, for higher ed, which is something that you also referenced while we were talking. UB 2020 is obviously a major goal for you guys out there in Western New York. And you see Nancy Zimpher, the chancellor, suggesting that perhaps actually there would have to be a tuition increase, at the very least that she wants the universities to be able to make decisions unilaterally about their own tuitions. I mean, if there is a tuition increase, how will that impact folks in Western New York, and the possibility that the SUNY Empowerment Plan as we know it will or won't get pushed through in the end?
Well, I believe we have difficult decisions that need to be made, undoubtedly. At the same time, we also need to make sure that we're representing the needs of our district. And, you know, Western New Yorkers are absolutely starving for job creation here. You know, people have been bleeding out of state and out of this region. Mayor Bloomberg was in Albany this past week, and he talked about the fact that New York City, although it represents 3% of the nation's population, they accounted for 10% of the nation's job growth. Here in Western New York, you know, we have just the opposite. You know, we're losing jobs by the tens of thousands. Since 1980, Erie County, the community that I represent, we've lost 100,000 people. The fact of the matter is, UB 2020 represents the need for job creation in this community. It will be the job creation machine for Western New York, but it also will make the University of Buffalo in Western New York the epicenter for education in New York State and in the entire Northeast. So we as a group of Western New York senators, Democrat and Republican, are working together to make sure that Western New York's voices are heard loud and clear down in Albany and across the entire state, no matter what part of the state you're from, to make sure that UB 2020, something that's critical to the economic development and economic viability of Western New York, is put on the table, and it's a priority of ours, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get that done.
Okay, let me ask you, when you talk about representation for Western New York, there is a large swath of Western New York that is not represented in Washington right now because of what happened with Chris Lee. And a number of people in your neck of the woods, including the Buffalo News, are suggesting that perhaps he jumped out of the picture too soon. Do you believe that he should have resigned? I mean, what are people saying out there?
Well, you know, I do believe he should have resigned, number one, and my heart goes out to his family. The fact of the matter is, you know, the 26th congressional district is now unrepresented in Congress, and that needs to change. And we need to make sure that Western New York is represented as strongly as possible by whoever is the next candidate that represents the 26th district.
So you would like the governor to call that special election, because so far we haven't heard anything from him.
Well, I believe that the 26th congressional district and all of New York State and all of Western New York is best suited by having a member of Congress in that district. Yes.
And just in parting, I mean, the Republicans are pretty much, for a while there, you were tripping over potential candidates for New York 26. Now it appears that they're coalescing behind Assemblywoman Jane Corwin. But the Democrats, it's not so clear. I mean, it's unclear to me whether or not the Democratic Party is actually going to fight for this district. Do you believe that they should?
I believe. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe at the end of the day, you know, we are all best suited through competition, and you know, through the electoral process, there will be a new representative from that district, and I believe that there is a group of dynamic representatives that could emerge from the Democratic side, be it the county clerk, Kathy Hochul, be it the county controller, Mark Poloncarz, be it other young, energetic people that could possibly come around. You know, at the end of the day, I believe that the people of that district deserve representation, and at the end of the day, the electoral process should go through, and the competition would best suit everyone.
Okay, but do you have a favorite? Just checking.
Well, we'll see who's coming out of the Democratic side before I commit to anybody, but I would definitely like to see a Democrat represent the 26th congressional district. I think at the end of the day, you know, a dynamic woman like Kathy Hochul would definitely serve that district well. I believe Mark Poloncarz brings a tremendous amount of attributes that could represent that district well. And I got to tell you, Jane Corwin, she is a young, aggressive, dynamic woman. So at the end of the day, whoever the people of the 26th congressional district choose, I'm sure they're going to choose wisely.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much, Senator Tim Kennedy. It's always good to see you. We'll be catching up with you in Albany soon.
My pleasure, Liz. Thank you.